Hey guys, what's going on? It's Austin here, and today we're going to be doing a kind of a versus video, kind of something new on the Sega Dreamcast versus the PS2. We will figure out which one is better. Most of you will say PS2 because most people have owned a PS2. Now just a bit of background for each of these consoles. The Dreamcast was Sega's last roar, just to give an overview, just oversimplifying. It was their last console. They put a lot of effort into it, but sadly it didn't do well. It only sold 16 million units worldwide, and was discontinued very early, only lasting about 2 years, 3 years if you count the launch in Japan, but most people count September 9th, 1999, the launch day for the Dreamcast in North America, as the day of the Dreamcast. So, September 9th, 1999, Dreamcast comes out. Amazing success the day it comes out. Later on, it kind of slowed down a little bit, and it did okay for the time that it was in. For the time that it was in, it did amazing. Sadly, Sega ran out of money to support it, and it was discontinued way too early before its true power could be unlocked, which is really disappointing. Now, amazingly, it's still alive, not the manner you're thinking. Games are still made for this, independently. Independent developers make games for this, like Neo Zyxu, Volgar the Viking, Xeno Crisis, that's on PS4, PS3, the PS Vita, is on here. But the Dreamcast is amazing, has so much potential, or it did, and if you've never played a Dreamcast, I recommend playing one. Even if you don't like the Dreamcast, I played it once, I thought it was crap. I promise you, you'll find something on there that you enjoy. Now, onto the PlayStation 2, which is everyone's favorite. Kind of showboating. Personally, this is my least favorite 6th generation game console. Now, why is that? I don't, well, for one is the name, and it's PS2, it just, I don't know, that's not really a creative name, although I can't really say much for Xbox, at least Sony knows how to count. But with the PS2, probably the most successful console ever, there's no denying that. I can respect it for the things that it's done and what it brought to the table. Basically, putting DVD features into this thing. Basically, a DVD player doesn't even have to be used for video games. It can be used for DVDs. Sold 155 million units worldwide. Wasn't discontinued until 2013, 2013. Near the launch of the PS4. So, but this came out on March 4th in 2000 in the United States. It launched in 1999, I believe, in Japan, and then later in 2000 everywhere else. And we all know this became the commercial success that it was. Now, this is the fat version. I don't have the slim version, so I can only review with what I have. But the PS2 is good. It's just not my favorite. The Dreamcast is my favorite out of the 6th generation. Just PS2 is bottom of the barrel for it. Just the games and just how the quality looks is just, it's just not that great. Fanboys, don't come at me. But it's all a matter of opinion. Now moving on to the controllers, we're gonna move on to the PlayStation controller. Now this is the PS1 PlayStation controller. It's basically the PS2 controller, just without these buttons being analog. So that's it. with that being said, really, I think this controller is okay. I don't think it's the best, but it it works. I don't really particularly like it, unless I'm really gonna have to use the D-pad. Now the D-pad, I like the D-pad. I like how this feels, but I don't like how I have to put my thumbs down here to play games like Killzone or Red Faction, which is really annoying. But what I can give PlayStation credit or Sony credit is that they introduced us to two triggers, which is great. Start and select. They didn't introduce us, but those are on here. There's an analog button, which toggles it on or off. There's only really one game that I've ever run into on the PS2 that does not use the sticks, and that is SmackDown vs. Raw 2006. I don't have that here at the moment. It's over there somewhere. But that's the only game I know of that only uses the D-pad to move and play the game, which is ridiculous. Now, this controller is okay. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Then the better controller, the Dreamcast controller, in my opinion. Now, let's take a good look at these two. Now, everyone's probably thinking, why no second thumbstick for this? Well, this came out in late '98. This version of the PlayStation 1 controller. This one came out in late 1998, shortly after the Dreamcast launched, so that's kind of the reason. And plus, the only console at the time to really use analog sticks was the N64 and the Sega Saturn, and they only had one stick, so not much you really could have done at the time. But I bet that if Sega was around long enough, they probably could have changed the controller to make two sticks on it. But because of the outcome of Sega, we will never know. Now, this is the Dreamcast controller. It's not a terrible controller. Granted, it's not the best, but it is by far the best controller of the 6th generation. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion. Don't come at me. And just to show, I have an Xbox Series S, or not Xbox, God. I have an Xbox controller S. This is the S controller, this is the S-type. Many people will say, oh, the Dreamcast controller is the inspiration for the Duke. No, that's not true. But there are similarities, just, you know, very different. But the biggest complaint I would probably have with this controller is that the analog stick has a dead zone, which means that it will only work when you move it to at a certain distance. So that's it. But the stick is fine. It feels fine. I don't understand why people are always saying like, "Oh, it hurts my thumb." It doesn't hurt my thumb. Doesn't hurt me. Doesn't do anything. The only issue is my hands get sweaty. it's made out of a very, it's the material is just it's okay. But the way the stick feels great. The D-pad feels amazing. Probably it's probably a better D-pad than any other D-pads that they have today. Even PlayStation's D-pad can't really compete with this. But it can, but it can't. The face buttons, it has A, B, X, and Y. Now it's kind of like how Xbox ended up doing their controllers, but as you can see, the colors are changed, and the buttons are the same too. It's just the button colors are different, and that's basically the Dreamcast controller. But the coolest thing about it is the VMU slot. This is the memory card for the Dreamcast. It's got a screen in it. Only holds 200 blocks, which kind of sucks. Which means you got to get a couple of these in order to really save all your data, which really sucks. Then on the top of the controller here, there's the Rumble Pack port or another VMU port, and then there's just the VMU port. But there's a lot of variations of this controller. There's a green one, there's a red one, there's a blue one, there's the extremely rare yellow one, which I want to get one day. I really want to get a new Dreamcast controller just so I can add more to my collection and stuff like that. But talking about memory cards, the PS2 memory card, the PS2 memory card holds a lot of space, and I mean a lot of space. This is the only memory card I've ever had to use for this PlayStation 2 in all my games for it. And I have not had to use my second one. My second one, still in the bag that I got it with. Still in the little plastic baggie, which is hilarious. Even though it's 8 megabytes, but holds a lot of storage. So you gotta remember, hard drives weren't really around for this generation until it came to the original Xbox, and then after the original Xbox came out, they added a hard drive that you would put back here into the PlayStation 2, but yeah, I don't have that, so but let's compare some games, let's talk about them a little bit, and I want to start with the PlayStation 2 section. Just talking about, you know, fighting games and stuff like that, and sports. The sports games on the PS2 for me aren't really astounding, but they're okay at best. They're just football. They're just football. They're just soccer. They're just baseball. It's just sports games. There's not really much to them. So my two favorite sports games for the PS2 have to be NFL Street and Madden 08. They're okay. They're not the greatest, but they're my favorites. Just the way they are. I don't know. They feel amazing. And then with the Dreamcast having sports games, oh man, Sega went all out on their sports titles. Like, here we go. Let me see here. We have the NFL series. We have the start of NBA 2K, which I did a review on this. You should go check it out. This is where the 2K series got its start. Granted, these games that I'm about to show were ported to the Xbox and the PS2, but Dreamcast versions were the ones made, and these are the better ones. Just, you gotta play them for what they were made for. There was NBA 2K, NBA 2K1, NBA 2K2. Now, all three, granted, they're just mild upgrades from each other, but in the end, I still think these are the three best NBA 2K games, and you can debate with me about that, but these are where it started, is where it is the best. And the same with the NFL 2K sports series, Sega Sports, NFL 2K1, NFL 2K, NFL 2K2, NFL 2K1, all great games. Again, mild upgrades from each other, but nonetheless, still great games. Favorite ones out of the six, my favorite NBA one would have to be NBA 2K2, and then NFL 2K2. Just because they were the newest, and I can still go back to these and play these. I love them all just as much. Just differences in games and just stuff like that. Then, probably the best section of the PS2, the fighting games. Now, I love I love Mortal Kombat. I love fighting games. So, as a kid growing up, I first played Mortal Kombat on the PS2. So that's where I got my love for fighting games in Mortal Kombat. And so, whenever anyone would ask me, what's your favorite Mortal Kombat game? It would probably have to be Armageddon for the PS2, I'm only saying the PS2 because of the controller and where the D-pad is placed. That's all. That's really the only big difference. With the original Xbox controller, it doesn't feel as clean and cutthroat. Yeah, these are the first. These are not all of them, but these are the main Mortal Kombat games for the PS2. Deadly Alliance, Armageddon, Deception. Deception is probably the best one, but if you want to play as all the characters, then you gotta get Armageddon. Armageddon is the definitive edition of all the Mortal Kombat games. And you can make a fighter, which they should probably bring back one day, but they probably never will. And to top it off with fighting games, I want to talk about Ultimate Fighting Championship, or UFC, for the Sega Dreamcast. Now, it's 2-player, it's fun. You play as UFC fighters at the time, from Tito Ortiz to Chuck Liddell to Frank Shamrock to... I can't remember, there's so many people. Gary Smith, or no, Maurice Smith, my bad. And the graphics for this are amazing. And just, this is a game I can go back to. This is a game I can play with my friends and have so much fun, even today. And just so, like, there's just so much competition in the game. Like, so much replayability. Just, it's fun. And you can make a character, there's career mode and everything. Granted, it's not like it is today, but it's just as good. You earn skill points, you level up your character a little bit, you level up their endurance, stamina, their skills, you unlock new moves and all this stuff. And that's UFC, and it's probably the best fighter on the Dreamcast, but only second to Soul Calibur. And I want to show something that was actually very cool. Now, since the Sega Dreamcast had a built-in modem, you could have internet connection right out of the box, and online play so much easier. And with that becoming a thing, online play, they released the Sega Dreamcast web browser. Now, the web browser it's useless now, sadly, but it's still awesome to use. You can use a keyboard with it. It says on the back, unleash the power of the Sega Dreamcast on the internet. And this is awesome. I wish I could have experienced something like this. It's a novelty item. It's really cheap, especially this one. I got this for $1, really cheap. But it's a novelty. It's kind of like the virtual racing of the Sega Dreamcast. I'm only saying that because virtual racing is a novelty item for the Dreamcast. So, but this is really what started online play and online connectivity for consoles, and that's amazing. Thank you, Sega, for that. Now, to the racing games, my favorite racing games. Now, for the PS2, I've only really got one racing game that I like, and that is Twisted Metal Black. Now, if you have a PS2 and have not played Twisted Metal, you have been living under a rock. Now, Twisted Metal is a combat racing game. It's a death match. It's you're in cars and you're fighting each other to the death, and it's so much fun. I have so much fun playing this. I can go back playing it with friends today. It's got 4-player, but sadly you need a multi-tap. Either way, still fun with 2 players. Even fun doing the challenge mode, just replaying through all the characters, getting to see all their endings. So much fun. And is probably the game to get for the PlayStation 2. Now, for my favorite racing game for the Saturn, it would probably have to be the Arcade Racer Roadsters. Yeah, Roadsters by Titus. Now, granted, this game suffers quite a bit, but it's still an amazing game. If you have not played Roadsters, then you need to try it, even on emulators or on a Dreamcast. It doesn't matter. This only came out on the Dreamcast, as far as I know. If I'm wrong, then please correct me in the comments. But this is the racing game to get for the Dreamcast, other than Sega GT or Sega Rally 2. This, if you're looking for a pure arcade racing game, then you need to go for Roadsters. Now, my final thoughts as far as the two consoles go together. I would have to say, because it's a very hard decision, but it's a very easy one to make too. Now, the Dreamcast, hands down, wins in all ways. Not all ways, but in a lot of ways it wins, in a lot of ways it doesn't. But it's still amazing either way. I would recommend picking one up. It's still cheap. It's still, its launch price was $200, and just getting the console itself, still around that price, and it's amazing. Now, like I said earlier, the Dreamcast independent scene is what keeps it alive, and that's what is amazing about it. That's why I love it. This is why it will be one of my favorite consoles, hands down. And it's my favorite Sega console, and I love it. Now, with the PS2, there's no denying that this thing was a major success everywhere in the world for what it was and how they got into people's homes. You cannot deny that. But as far as games go, and as far as fun for me, this doesn't take the cake. Yeah, the Dreamcast is the top of the cake. This is the cream of the cake. This is the plate of the cake. I'm sorry, but all you PS2 fans, I can't agree with you. The PS2 is not that great. And yeah, it's got great games, but it's just, the games are not as notable as Xbox games or the Dreamcast games or the GameCube games. There's just so much. Anyways, I do hope that you guys did enjoy this little versus comparison video. If you disagree with me thinking that the Dreamcast is a better one, you are completely obliged to. It's all a matter of opinion. Comment what your favorite system is. Tell me what you think is better, the PS2 or the Dreamcast. That's up to you. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.